I think to have the safe environment to let your kids know if they're going through something, you want to be the first people to get talked to. Like I said, once I ran to my dad, I started hyperventilating, but it cooled down because I knew I was safe with him. Something that I think many parents struggle on is not having a big connection with their kids. But I think one of the reasons why connections aren't so big is because they can't really trust their parents that much, because they don't have that kind of safe space.
Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Rudi Riekstins, and this is the InPowered Life. Hey, welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins, and we're about to begin an incredibly powerful episode. But before we dive into the episode, I wanted to take just a moment to give some context to what you're about to hear. The conversation is with my 11-year-old son, Brady. He had come up to me recently, having had a very difficult few days, and shared some deeply and very life-altering news with me that really shook me foundationally at the core. And as any parent would, I reacted in a way with just tremendous love and kindness and compassion for where he is, for what he was going through, for anything that I could have added to it, for his friends, for the situation in itself. But at the end of the conversation, my son turned around and he said that, he has an awareness to the fact that other kids also experience something very similar. And he then asked if he could share this message on the InPowered Life podcast. And as any father, I was very hesitant. I was nervous for him, nervous for the conversation. And if I'm really honest, nervous for some of the judgment that people might have based on hearing this conversation, because I don't want anyone to think that I brought my son onto the platform and said to him, you have to share this message. He came to me and said, Dad, you live your life so boldly, so courageously, always talking about your life, your feelings, what it was like for you to be a 6-year-old boy and to be called stupid and to not think you're good enough and to not feel like you're worthy. And I use my life in all of my speaking and all of my coaching and all of my trainings, and through my story, help lessen somebody else's time in the pain. And he said, Dad, I want to give that gift back to people. And I said to him, Brady, in sharing this, people might listen to this that you go to school with, and they may not be your friends, or they may be your friends today and not tomorrow. And they may use this information against you, and they may say some of these things back to you. And he said to me, you've had the experience, and by having the experience, that there's value in coming through the other side. And coming through the other side is you have an opportunity to teach it and share it. Now, I want to be very transparent. My son is not through the other side. This is just the opening of the dialogue, but it is an ongoing dialogue. And he chose that through this process to find the healing, to find the value, to find the meaning and the purpose in having had the experience in the first place, which is at the foundation of what it is that I teach, is that when we go through life and when we've had experiences, it's our responsibility to turn around, teach it, share it, uplift, inspire, and yes, lessen somebody else's time in the pain. If you're listening to this episode today, I want you to listen to this with an open heart, with kindness, with compassion, with love. And then I would love for you to apply everything that you're going to hear in this episode back into your life. If it is a relationship, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a sibling, maybe it's with your parents. But turn around and apply this incredibly valuable information that is coming from my unbelievably brilliant, kind, generous, loving, and dare I say, the bravest 11-year-old I know. Let's dive in. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins, and I'm your host. I am abundantly grateful to have each and every single one of you here to listen to these episodes, as week after week, I am committed to offering you and bringing you information that carries the power and the potential to change your life, to change how you think about something, to change how you feel, to change your approach. And so often we just need somebody else's perspective, somebody else's vantage point to give us what feels like a really small momentary shift in how we think or how we feel or how we're showing up. But when we look at the compounded effect of what that looks like when it's applied into your life and then over a period of time of you showing up in a completely different way creates then the greatest level of growth. And so today is going to be one of those episodes that is going to stretch how you think and stretch how you feel. And my hope is that at the end of this, you're going to be able to turn around and action something really incredible. I am always committed to bringing you the most incredible, powerful, and impactful people. People that when you hear them speak, you're just in wonder and awe of the brilliance of who they are and what they've done and how they've been able to show up in their lives. Not so that you can look at them and say, wow, they're just incredibly powerful people, but instead so that you yourself can be inspired to say, how do I show up to be an incredible, powerful leader of self, leader within an organization, and leader within humanity. And today I'm bringing you somebody who is one of my greatest teachers, somebody who every single day shows me what does it look like to lead with love, with kindness, and with compassion, and never with judgment. And regardless of age or title, this is going to be an example of what does it look like to every single day leave a room better than you found it. One of the foundations with which I live and lead my life. This person is an absolute joy spirit and is always walking around with an unbelievable song on his heart. And if you have the privilege of spending time and sharing space with him, you're going to know that he lights up every single room that he walks into. And it is intentional because he knows who he is and who he has come here to be. And more than anything, he knows that his place is to cheer up and to make people feel inspired. And so I am bringing today an incredible human being who I'm honored to know deeply and profoundly to the InPowered Life podcast so that you may take a page out of his book. He is my son. He's 11 years old, and his name is Brady Alexander Riekstins. Brady, thank you so much for spending some time with us at the InPowered Life podcast. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. That was wonderful for what you said. As you said, it's all true. Thank you. I don't know what to say. This has been a dream for me since I was like 5. I've always wanted to be on the podcast with you, so this is a great moment.
All of what I said was 100% from my heart, not because you're my son, but just because of who you are and how you show up in the world. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to grab the attention of the audience because there are people listening to this, thousands and thousands of people that are going to hear the words that you're going to say today. And I don't want that to make you nervous, but rather to really underscore the power of the words that you're going to be speaking today and the benefit that those words could have on people. I am going to say to the audience that if you are a father, if you're a mother, if you are thinking of becoming a parent, this is an episode that you need to lean into because Brady is going to beautifully and vulnerably today share a private conversation that he and I had yesterday that actually birthed the idea of this. And if you could take a page from that conversation and apply that into your life, it's going to change the relationship you have with your children. It's going to change the people that they become. It's going to change how they are going to parent. And every single parent that I meet absolutely is my truth. It's Anderson's truth. It's my parents' truth. It's my in-laws' truth. We are always wanting to be better parents than our parents. And it's that generational healing of having lived a certain way, of having had a certain experience. We want to turn around and take all the good things our parents did, and then we want to improve on the things that we weren't great on or that we didn't have great experiences with. And this conversation for me was so eye-opening, terrifyingly eye-opening. And I have had a very vulnerable heart all day today, a little tender heart. But when I just reflect back on the conversation, it makes me want to cry. And I'm so grateful for this conversation because I think more people need to be having these conversations. And so before we get to this conversation, before we share with you what is going to be unfolding over the next few moments, I would love for you, Brady, in your own words, just to tell the audience a little bit about you. Who is Brady Alexander Riekstins?
I'm an 11-year-old boy. I play a lot of football. I've been obsessed with this since I was just a little kid. My dad was always throwing the football with me. Not every time I've asked, but that's almost like every day, so I can't blame him. I'm just always hanging out with friends. My dad gets annoyed sometimes because he's like, let's spend some time. I'm like, after I go up to my friend's house. And then I spend a time with him. Like, we were gonna go to Costco today. We didn't do that, but we went to get some stuff. Right afterwards, I was like, hey, do you mind if I go to my friend's house? And he's like, just go ahead, because he knows he can't stop me. I think I'm pretty vulnerable to feelings, so it's why I love to be complimented, so I will take that any day, but that's the big part of me.
You most certainly do receive love through words of affirmation. And I think it's important as family members to know how our family members want to be loved, how they cherish each other. And so we know that your sister Liv, she's 10 years old for the benefit of the audience, and my wife Aniston often co-hosts the show with me. They love touch. And so they want to be softed. And softing is like where you tickle someone's feet, or they put their hand in front of you and you sit and just gently caress their hands, like their eyeballs roll into the back of their heads. They stop listening to what's happening in the room and they in that moment just melt. They love to be touched. Brady, my man, you love words of affirmation. And I try and hold back sometimes by pouring into you, because I think you get the eye roll of like, you're my dad. You're supposed to say those things about me. And sometimes you don't realize how true those words are. And so in a room where you right now are being filmed and everybody is listening and you can't squirm and run away, I think you're an incredible human being. One of your strengths is your ability to be able to articulate really in-depth conversations. Sometimes you can't find the words poetically, but you still can come and be able to speak into something that you're experiencing, something that you're going through. Your sister and you have this unbelievable gift of being able to talk about things that so many people cannot talk about. Last night, you came up to me and you said safe space, and then you grabbed onto me, hyperventilating, almost not able to breathe. You were having what I would call a panic attack. And just with all the emotion in the world coming out of you, I could just feel the weight of that pressure. And I want to start there, but I want to start with the word safe space. And so for many people, they don't know what that means. Safe space is a word that we really created, or a phrase that we created in our house. And I would love for you to tell the audience, what is safe space and why is safe space important to you?
Yeah, so we created this when I was like 7, 8 years old, and it has been the living stock of our family. We just use it every single time we feel like there's something we shouldn't have done that we know we have to tell the truth. So we go up to them and we say, safe space. That means we're not in as much trouble as we would get if we denied that we did it or we lied to them. So when I was younger, of course, lying was a big problem for me. Once we made that, I would go up to them. It would take a lot, but I would go up to them and I would be like, I did something wrong, safe space. I really hope you can forgive me. And I tell them all about it. And most of it just ends up having a conversation. We walk off. Every now and then will I get a small punishment. But that is because we have a really safe space in the house to where I have the feeling like I'm fine. I'm able to go to my parents. They are the number one people I can go to, and I know I won't get in trouble as long as I don't lie. And that has taught me a lesson I probably will remember for the rest of my life.
Well, let's unpack that for the audience a little bit. You know, you just said that you had a problem lying when you were younger, and I want the audience to really know, what does that mean? It's not that Brady would walk around telling fibs or lies about other things like, oh, I'm doing this, and he did something else, or he would make up stories about his life or things he was doing or conversations he was having. It wasn't that kind of lying. He would hide things if he thought that that could potentially cause pain, meaning he would get into trouble, he would get grounded, he knew something was wrong, he would do anything and everything in his power to not get into trouble. And so he found that the path of least resistance at a very young age, 4, 5, 6 years old, was that he would lie about it. We had a little bag in our freezer filled with chocolates. My mom made these incredible, sugar-free, delicious, like the closest you could get to healthy snacks. And we would have 40 or 50 of them in a bag, and we would have them in the freezer. And then they would dwindle little bit by little bit by little bit. And we knew Brady was helping himself to these out of the freezer. And we would ask him, are you taking the chocolate? He'd be like, no, absolutely not. And so that's the lying that he's referring to. But the safe space and the importance of safe space, which I encourage you bring into your relationships as a husband, as a wife, as a boyfriend, girlfriend, with your partners, or even in business, and absolutely, as the point of this conversation today, with your children. When we told the kids that if we find out that you've done something, the punishment will be significantly greater than if you came to us and elected to tell us the truth and you said, hey, I did something and I want to own up to it. Sometimes it was going into the freezer, taking 2 chocolate balls, eating them, and then afterwards realizing I shouldn't have done that, and there's a consequence to it. And then being able to walk into my office or Anderson's office or the living room and saying, hey, can I have a safe space? And then we say, yes. Now, safe space means we will not get angry. Now, did you hear that? We still get to have emotion. We still get to be upset. We still get to be disappointed or whatever the scene or emotion is. But it's that we don't outwardly express any of it. And we create a safe space. The kids at one point broke something very expensive as ours. Both of the kids came into the room and they were like, safe space. We were playing with something in our mouths. We threw it around like we were pretending to be animals, and it broke, and we're really sorry. And then in that moment, my immediate reaction would have normally been to scream and be like, what have you done? Why would you do that? But because we had been reminded that there was a safe space, we had to take a really deep, slow, calming breath and say, okay, well, why don't you tell us what you learned? And these 2 terrified little kids with their big eyes expecting to be yelled at had a beautiful conversation with their parents around, we don't play in the house with things that throw them around. They can hit other things. And we then used examples of how else could you learn this? Where else would this rule be able to apply of not throwing things around the home? And Brady identified throwing a football is not something we should do indoors, and kicking a soccer ball, not something we should do indoors. And so safe space gave us the opportunity to have that without creating additional triggers or traumas. But I'm going to be the very first person to tell you that I'm not perfect. I make so many mistakes. I do everything in my power to be the best father that I can be. Aniston is an incredible parent, and I'm so inspired by how she loves on our kids every single day. She seems to be flawless at it. And yet for me, I find that I get emotional. I have old past triggers that come up for me, and I'm trying to be a certain kind of parent and a very structured, disciplined parent. And sometimes I don't create enough space for people to also make mistakes. And I started that way intentionally, saying that I'm not perfect. And so sometimes my parenting style is not perfect, but I do the very best I can to be the very best parent that I can. And that really brings us to the forefront of our conversation. So yesterday evening at 8:30 p.m., kids are getting ready for bed. Brady's in his bathroom showering, and he comes running into my bedroom, soaking wet hair. He's put on his pajamas, and he just grabs me and holds me. He holds me so tight, tighter than I think he's ever held me before, and he asks for a safe space. And then he offloaded, saying that he was going through something really, really difficult, and he wanted to share it with me. I want to talk a little bit about what did it take for you to have the courage and the confidence to be able to come to me, to have a vulnerable conversation, to say that you were really hurting last night. You were in a lot of pain, and you needed to be able to talk about something that you hadn't had the confidence to be able to talk about. What did it take for you, firstly, to know that in that moment you had another option?
That is a good question. Well, I had gotten out of the shower, and then I just got this really big headache. So I dried myself off. I got into my pajamas, and I just stood there looking at myself in the mirror, tears down my face, didn't know what was happening, scared, and I just knew the memory, because I've had so many memories of this, of us sitting outside, all as a family, and you saying, if you ever need us, we are the ones to help you. We will help you. And that just came in my mind, and I knew the angels, my angel team was there helping me, telling me the best choice. I listened to my gut, my intuition. I turned off the light, closed the door, and I ran straight to your room. It just went further on from there. But I'm really glad that I got that intuition, that stuff from my angels. So
Hey, it's Aniston Riekstins here, and I want to ask you, have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online or click the link in the show notes.
So I want to unpack a little bit about what you said, because you've touched on two topics that are really important, and not everybody's going to be able to follow along because not everybody has the context that you have. You said you got out of the shower and you had a lot of heightened emotion. You had tears streaming down your face. In that moment, you were feeling a lot of pain. And so I want to go back and just explain, for the benefit of the audience, what happened before that moment, because that's really important for them to be able to understand. And then I want to touch on something else that you brought up, which was you were trusting your intuition and that you listened to the guidance of your angels and guides. And that might be a very new conversation to many people listening to this today, especially coming out of the mouth of an 11-year-old young man. So first things first, Brady got into trouble 3 times this week because he did not respect the rules of the house. Meaning, we said to him, you can go to your friend's house, and he had set this up beautifully in the beginning, introducing himself. He loves to be social. Brady is up for a party all day, every single day. And he has a large friend circle, and he bounces around from friend group to friend group to friend group just because he loves to have fun. And we'll come home from doing something, he'll be completely drained, tired, sweating, looks like he needs to take a rest. And somebody says, hey, we're going to go play basketball. And then he's gone. And he's just gone for it. He just loves to be social, loves to be active, loves to be outside. And so Brady asked if he could go somewhere. And we said, yes, absolutely. This is the time you need to be home. And he did not come home. And we had to try and find him. We had to phone him, and it was a struggle to reach him. And then eventually we found him, and we sat him down and we said, look, this isn't the first time this has come up, but you need to make sure that you respect the boundaries that we give you, that if we tell you when to come home, here's when and here's why. And he said, totally understands. And it was just a mistake. He was having fun. He didn't mean it. And then the very next day it happened again, except this time we could not reach him, and it made us actually get worried. And so now we were stressing about where is he. And then when we finally found him, our emotions had shifted into now being absolutely upset, because we didn't know if something was wrong. And so our emotions were really heightened. And he just looked at us like, what? I'm just having fun. I'm just playing. I didn't mean anything by it. And so we said, look, if this happens again, then there's going to be a significant punishment. And by punishment, I mean, he's going to lose privileges, like he won't be able to go to football, he won't be able to play with his friends, he'll lose phone privileges or electronic privileges. And so he knew the stakes were high. And in our parenting, we often say, here's why we're upset. And we don't do it with a raised voice. We say, here's why we're upset. This is what we thought. Here's what we've explained previously. Here's what you've previously committed to. Do you see where we would be upset. Do you see why? And each time Brady's been able to articulate, yes, I didn't listen. I didn't come home when I was supposed to. My phone was on silent. And he's able to, in that moment, tell us all the things that he has or hasn't done or why we're that way. I'll often ask him, do you understand why we're upset? Do you understand why you're in trouble? Like, why as a parent would this be important to me? Again, he's able to articulate those things back to me. So in my mind, I think that we're on the same page and we understand. When this happened on Tuesday, something unique happened in our home that doesn't always happen. And that was I raised my voice. I actually used the word shit. And I don't cuss in front of my kids. And he said to me, but I did this and I did this and I did this. And in that moment, I got angry and said, Brady, I don't give a shit. You need to. And the moment I used a profanity, he looked like his eyeballs had just doubled in size. He had this look of horror on his face. His bottom lip started to quiver. And he said to me, you used the potty word at me, thinking that the moment I spoke with profanity, it somehow represented something about him. And we then had to come out of heightened emotion, apologize for what I had said, and then re-engage the conversation. 30 minutes later, we're back to, do you understand and do you agree? And we all agree. Well, let's fast forward to last night. 2 to 3 days later, give him a timeline. You've got to be home by this time. And 6 minutes after that timeline, I'm texting him, no response. I call him, and then eventually I reach him, and he's like, oh my gosh, I set an alarm. It didn't go off. I'm really sorry. And when he walked into the front door, he was in trouble, and he knew he was in trouble. And very calmly, both Anderson and I spoke to him. There was no yelling. There was no screaming. There was no profanities. There was just a very calm conversation about, well, this is the third time we've spoken about this, and now there has to be a dire consequence. And the end result of that was that he was going to be grounded. We hadn't decided what the punishment was going to be. We just knew he was going to, lose privileges like football, friends, electronics, etc. And I then sent him upstairs to go and shower. Me thinking I've done everything at the best of my abilities as a father, the best of my abilities as a parent, to be able to communicate, to set structure, and to be consistent, my son goes off to shower. Brady, why don't you tell us, how did you feel having that conversation? And I want you to be really honest. Like 3 times in a row, you're being reprimanded for something. Why don't you tell us what was going through your mind in that moment? And then what led to you running to the room to grab me and create a safe space?
So I got into the room, and then I felt just sad, angry, emotional, just all throughout. But I got out of the shower, and then that's when it hit me. I felt unworthy, unreliable, untrustworthy. I felt like I wasn't the one to be the leader I was supposed to be. I felt like I wasn't the actual Brady Riekstins. And that hurt. And then I had, like I said the other time, tears all over my face because I'm just feeling these emotions that aren't true. I know aren't true, but my conscience isn't. So then I run 5 minutes later because in my mind, I had a picture of me putting a knife to my chest like I wanted to commit suicide. It was the worst feeling I could have ever felt. Tears all over my face, like double. I walked up to my dad and my eyes were like a rainforest, just tears all over. So I grabbed him, we walked together to my room, and then I just hooked onto him and I didn't let go. Still crying, just didn't let go. And we had probably the most helpful talk I've had my whole life. And it let me notice, let me recognize, let me remember I'm safe, and that I have somebody I can trust, and that I have the best friend, best dad I could ever have. So we sat there for like 15 minutes just talking. And then we went into our room, and my mom and my sister were doing something for their retreat they're planning with cards, where you pick a card after asking a question in your mind and using your energy to pick the right card. I went in there, I picked a card, and then after that, every single card I picked brought up to what happened like 5 minutes ago. It said you can trust, like you need to let help, like you need to accept help. And then there was one I brought relationship with like family, friends, loved ones, like dating. And yet again, it said you need to accept help. And so that showed a sign. And normally I don't share stuff with my sister, but I decided this is a safe place. I should start trusting her. And so I gave the look to my dad. He looked at me. He said, let's just wait till your sister's out. And I'm like, I'll do it with her. I trust her. And so I had that conversation. And while my mom was talking to me, my sister was like, shocked. Almost as much shock as whenever I first got the image. And that just shows that it helped, because it shows that my sister loves me, and my sister is like, I gotta start trusting her, and I gotta start going to her if I feel like I want to talk to her. She's my sister. I love her. But I'm really happy I got into that.
Well, Brady, I have so much to say, and I want to start by just telling you how proud I am of you. Firstly, I'm proud of you that you had the courage to come to me in that moment when you were going through something so painful that you would ever even have a thought like that, but that the next thought would be to run to daddy. Now, I know that you have the option to run to me or to mom, and that at the time your mother was in the bathroom helping your sister as she was coming out of the shower. And so I was right there in front of you and available to you. But that took so much courage to be able to do that. But more than that, to not hide that thought that you had, to not hide the emotion that you had, to have the ability to be able to communicate it to me. For context for the audience, he was full-blown panic attack mode, couldn't breathe, like hyperventilating word for word coming out. And so I had to navigate him to a safe space, which was his bedroom. And we sat down on the bed, and then he literally sat in my lap and just held on to me and cried and cried. And he probably held on to me for about 15 minutes in that state. And then we sat for about, I want to say, another 20 minutes talking and just unpacking all of what he had said, what he's been going through, and how long he's been going through this, and how often he's had these thoughts, and what triggers these thoughts. And then, for the benefit of the conversation today, what I've done to cause it. And that's where the value of this episode comes from. The second reason, Brady, that I'm so proud of you is that you just said that on this podcast, and you know that there are going to be thousands of people that are going to listen to this. And last night, part of what we spoke about when I was holding you and you were crying, and you had shared the images that you see in your mind when you feel like you're not good enough, and when you feel like you're not worthy, and that you're not living up to the expectation of what I have, or what your mom has, or what society has for who you should be, that I had shared with you. Every experience that we go through is always so that we can gain the vantage point from that experience and turn around and teach it. That is what I say to people that are inside of my community. It's what I say to my one-on-one coaching clients. It's what I say to the leaders of companies that I support, is that we are there to be the example and to teach, and that through having an experience, that only when we teach it does it actually give value and meaning to the experience that we've had. Otherwise, it would just be an experience. And I had said to you that what you're going through right now is an opportunity for you to heal in this moment, to give a teaching to yourself. Also, in doing it, you gave an opportunity for me to have a healing, and for me to learn from you. So there's a teaching in that. And then you went into the bedroom and you had a conversation with your mother and your sister, and both of them obviously shocked, because like, to hear anyone going through that, no one's ever expecting it and no one's ever prepared for it. And to then for us to have a dialogue in our bedroom, all four of us sitting on our bed, about such a sensitive conversation about your emotions. You did it without hiding, without shame, without blame. You just said, this is what I'm feeling. This is why I feel this way. And this is how your actions and behaviors make me feel. And so now you gave your mom and your sister also opportunities to learn. You just a moment ago shared that that whole experience also showed you that you can create additional safety and security with your sister, which, you have a great relationship with her, but it deepened on a completely different level. That's twice now you've told me. I cannot even believe how much she loves me. It was so evident how much more she loves me and how much more you have to love her and pour into her, because that's the family dynamic that we have. So there were so many values and teachings in just that alone. But then today, when I said to you, how do you feel about us having a conversation on the podcast about parenting? And we don't have to talk about what you experienced last night. We could just talk about, lessons and learning and what people go through. And you said, I am so excited and I want to go there. And then you immediately ran upstairs and you put on a clean shirt and a hoodie and you came and you were like, when are we doing it? When are we doing it? When are we doing it? Because you immediately were ready to support other people in healing it. I am so, so, so sorry that you or anyone would ever feel like they are not worthy, that they are not good enough, that they're not living up to and or meeting somebody else's expectation. I have worked tirelessly your whole life and your sister's whole life to make sure that you always know that you are loved and that you are protected, and that we will do anything and everything to remind you of the brilliance of who you are, the divinity of who you are, and that you are absolutely imperfectly perfect, and that you are just exactly the way that you need to be. But with that also comes that responsibility of there needs to be rules. We need to teach you what to eat, what not to eat. We need to teach you how to be kind, how to love people, how to be a great leader. You used a word earlier where you said, I felt like I wasn't meeting the expectation of the leader I'm supposed to be. And that hurt when I heard you say those words, because I'm always saying to you that you are a leader, that you're a leader of leaders, and that you need to lead and you need to be the example. And I've never really thought of how does an 11-year-old boy process his father's exacting standards, meaning these high standards that he sets for his son or for his daughter on who they should be. I want you to be honest, not just to me, but to anyone that's listening, about two things. And that is, what does it feel like when you have a parent that is constantly telling you what to do or how to do it? And how is that processed in your mind? Because we know what we're intending, but we don't know how it's received. And I would love for you to be open and honest with me about what has it been like for you to be parented by parents who have high expectations for you.
Sometimes it can be hard. And like I said last night, which I'm pretty sure you remember, I was like, it's life can be hard sometimes, and it shouldn't be. Like you said, it's easy. Going to a friend's house, that's simple. Walking the dogs, that's simple. Drinking water, that's simple. But there's some stuff that in life I say to myself, I wish my parents would sometimes understand what I'm saying, sometimes understand what I'm going through. And the only reason I went to you was because I felt safe with you, and was because I knew you would understand. And you said that I will always be here for you, no matter what. But sometimes I do wish that you guys would understand more or listen to me more, because I'm trying to say something that I'm going through after I get in trouble, and then you guys are like, no, you did this wrong. You have to promise you're not going to do this again, because you cannot do that again. And I never get a chance to tell you why I really did it or how it could have happened, because you guys are like, no matter what happens, if it happens again, then you're getting punished. And then sometimes stuff happens that I can't control, and then it happens, and then sometimes God makes that happen. Like, the reason I got those images, and I'm happy I got those images for half of the reason, it created a stronger bond with my sister, and it created a stronger bond with my angels, and it created a stronger bond with you and me. So that can only get bigger in this infinite universe. Something I do want to ask you, though, is you said that you've also gone through that. What was that like, having parents that didn't really understand?
Brady, I never ever told my parents. And so my thoughts were a little different than yours, in that last night you shared that you actually had an image of something you wanted to do to yourself, to harm yourself, because you didn't feel worthy. And I want to give context for the audience before I answer your question. When you and I were speaking, you shared that that's not the first time you've had those thoughts, but it is the first time you've shared it with me. And that a large part of that feeling unworthy is because, as a parent, I'm constantly making you do better. I'm constantly saying you need to be a leader. You need to be the example. If kids do something wrong and you're part of the group, then I say, well, you should know better. You should do better. And that you know more than I, that because I'm teaching and I'm sharing with you that my understanding and expectation of you is so much higher. And that at the end of it, you had said to me, sometimes I just want to be an 11-year-old boy. Sometimes I just want to make mistakes. And sometimes I don't want to always have to be the leader. And I think that's really important, because in your mind, you've been processing that every time you do something wrong, that I'm disappointed that you're not enough. And that's not the truth. I know that's what you said last night, and that's how it felt. But at no point in time do I ever look at you and think, man, you're not enough. You're not meeting my expectation. I wish my son was better. I wish I had a better son. That's never, ever the thought that goes through your mom's mind. It's never the thought that goes through my mind. But that's the way that you process that. For me, when I was your age, growing up, I really struggled. I had a very small friend circle, and all of a sudden, my entire group of guy friends turned on me. And for a whole week, they were picking on me, bullying me, pushing me around, sticking notes on my back, and just being really mean. They showed me how mean people could be. And these were kids I had known my whole life. We'd all grown up together. To me, they felt like we were like brothers. And the relationship trust was completely severed in that moment. And I had thoughts of, if something happened to me and I had the choice to save my life or let my life slip away, I would just let it slip away. We had a snake infestation, in like a pandemic of just a lot of snakes at one point in our little town. And in South Africa, there are so many of the world's deadliest snakes, where if you get bitten, your turnaround time is 2 to 15 minutes. And if you don't seek medical attention, you won't make it. And I used to have that thought of, as I'm walking through these long grasses, if there's a snake and it bites me, I'm just going to sit down. I won't run for help. I'll just allow it to happen, because I wasn't loved and I wasn't good enough and I wasn't worthy. And it would just be easier if that happened and I didn't go and look for help. I knew that my parents loved me and I knew that my siblings loved me. But in that moment, it just felt like it would be easier for me to not feel that pain of rejection by my friends, rejection from other people. And that compounded over the course of my life. My hope is that in our conversation that we're having today, is that parents realize something. And that is that for the last, this could be for the last 10 years, but in the last 2 months, there's been a tremendous amount of heightened emotion, globally speaking, energetically. And it's people coming up against their triggers of who they were, how they've been showing up. And it's all to teach them, where do they need to grow? Where do they need to focus in on something? I've had, as an example, reoccurring dreams of my wife, your mom, Brady. I've had recurring dreams of her waking up and saying to me, "Oh, I'm leaving," or "I don't love you," or "I'm going to go to someone else." And then I wake up and my heart is broken. But then I look at my relationship and I'm like, that's not present in my marriage at all. There's no jealousy. She would never be that kind of person. I cannot even imagine a reality where that would be true. But then I have these dreams and then I feel that pain. And so it's been very heightened over the last few months. And that's because we're coming to a point where we can heal them and we can grow them. And as parents, we're aware we're going through these things as a husband and as a wife. But that's the disconnect, is that as a parent, we don't often think about what are our kids going through. And if you listening to this episode right now are a parent, or you're a husband or a wife, or you're in a relationship with someone, and you're going through something emotionally, you're having heightened levels of emotion, your trigger wounds are coming up, you're feeling the insecurities, the frustrations, the resentments, and it just seems like it's amplified over the last few months. Well, that has been designed that way. But the lesson today in this episode is that we're going through something and we think we're the only ones going through it. Aniston and I are unbelievable communicators, and we have communicated with each other what we're going through. So Aniston will come to me and say, "Oh, this is what I'm going through. This is where my triggers are." And, hers is related to her worth in making, money and expanding her footprint and expanding her impact. And mine is around safety, security, being seen and being enough. And so we are having these dialogues. We're doing the work. We're doing these healing sessions. We've done so much work over the last 2 months. And we're really proud of the work that we've been doing together. But what hit me in the face last night, Brady, was when you ran into the room and you held me, you started crying and you shared this image that you had and the emotion that you had. And that every time I yell at you, or anytime I ground you, anytime I sit you down and I talk to you after a football game about what you did or how you could do it better, even though I'm not raising my voice, even though I'm not screaming and shouting, except for the one day when I dropped a potty word, but that those made you feel like I thought that you weren't good enough, even though it's not true. That's how you processed it. And what was so alarming about that was that at no point in time did Aniston and I consciously ask ourselves, if we're going through all of this heightened emotion, what are our kids going through right now? And so, Brady, I want to apologize for many things. Right now, I want to apologize that I'm always holding you to this very high standard. And right now, you also just want to be an 11-year-old boy and you want to make mistakes and you want to feel safe to make those mistakes. And I told you, I'm never going to not hold you to the standard and I'm never going to not have the rules, but I am going to loosen up in how I communicate those to you and creating additional guardrails so that instead of waiting for the clock to hit, 5:30 to tell you you're late, phone you right before 5:30 and say, "Hey, I'm just reminding you, you need to come." And so we can treat each other a little differently so that we don't ever have those feelings of unworthiness or not enoughness. But the real benefit in this for the audience is that, man, there are people in your lives right now. It could be your partner and it absolutely are going to be your kids, and they're going through something. And unless you're pausing and asking them, how are they? What are they going through? What is it that they're experiencing right now? What are their triggers? And how can you then learn from that so that you can create a shift or a change? So, Brady, I'm going to ask you right now on the InPowered Life podcast with everybody listening, how can I be a better dad?
That is a really hard question. Honestly, something you could do is like you said, instead of feeling what you're feeling, like, I'm so angry, this is all I've told him so many times, like you said, think about what they're thinking. But I'm only saying that because I could also pick up from that. I'm always like, oh my gosh, this is all his fault, I was just playing, I'm so angry, man, I just want to punch something. But I'm not taking 1 second just to think of you, think, what could I have done better? Because I only do it when you ask me. And that's only because you asked me. But sometimes I wish I could just pick up, what was he feeling? Is there something I could go back and say better? Is there some way I could apologize to where we don't have to go to bed or go to school or just go somewhere feeling, man, the relationship I have with my best friend isn't okay, it's not going well. Because whenever that does happen and people don't say sorry, don't go, it's how people break up, how people get divorced. It's how best friends are broken up. But something I wanted to pick up on whenever you said about dreams. Yeah, I also had a really weird dream, but it was something about a really big fear I've had. And it's about losing somebody I'm close to. And the first friend I've had whenever we moved into Wilmington was somebody named Troy. And I had a dream where he, right in front of me, got killed. And it was terrifying for me. I was the whole time, most of it was like me at a funeral, which was actually just my school auditorium. And I was just sitting there looking at the ground like I could have done better. I could have saved him instead of just staring. I could have been a protector. I could have been a better friend. I could have just not been a bystander. And then I woke up. I went to the bathroom I was standing in earlier that day, just washed my face, knew it wasn't real, knew I could always do better if it was happening in the moment, which it would never happen. Went back to bed, had the same dream, woke up, knew it wasn't real, went back to bed, and then had a normal dream. But it just shows that instead of having that hyper feeling, oh my gosh, this is so scary, I can't believe this, know that it's showing you that to overcome your fear, to show you that your fear doesn't exist and that you can let it go. And so since last night, I haven't thought about it once, completely forgot about it until you brought dreams up. And same reason I'm happy I had the dream, happy I had those thoughts to teach me lessons. And I hope people don't have those dreams, hope people don't have those lessons, but I hope they have the lesson if they need to learn it, like I did. So
let me ask you then. I'm going to ask you, and I apologize for interjecting, but I think it's really powerful what you're saying. If there is a parent right now that is listening to this and they've got kids at home, what would be your advice to them right now?
If they're going through that?
If there are parents listening to this and they've got children, what would be your advice? Like, think about the power of this answer. If you could get the attention of so many parents, what would you want them to know about their kids right now?
Well, at the start, like we started picking up on safe space, I think to have the safe environment to let your kids know if they're going through something, you want to be the first people to get talked to. Like I said, once I ran to my dad, I started hyperventilating, but it cooled down because I knew I was safe with him. Something that I think many parents struggle on is not having a big connection with their kids. But I think one of the reasons why connections aren't so big is because they can't really trust their parents that much because they don't have that kind of safe space.
So now my question to you is, how can a parent create trust with their children?
It does not happen in one day. You're going to have to build it up, but it just starts by sitting them down, talking with them, seeing how they're going, how their past has been, asking if they're doing fine in school, asking if they're doing fine in a job, if they're doing fine in their relationships, friend-wise,
Showing an interest in them.
Yeah. So then they'll start to be like, okay, they care about what I'm doing. And then you start building that up every day. Just ask, hey, are you? Was school good? Is your relationship still going good? Are you still hanging out with your friends? And then every single day ask, is there anything? If they look down, just ask. Go up to them, ask, sit down with them, ask, is there anything that you need to talk with me? I just hope you know if you're struggling, I am here for you. I love you, and even if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to come to me. But if it hurts, just I'm here for you.
That is so
And then they'll start
powerful.
believing. They'll start coming to you, and they soon enough they won't really think of the option. No, I'm not going to. They won't have to lie to you. They won't have to keep it in. They won't have to be somebody they're not. They'll be able to be who they are with somebody that they can trust.
So now, what would you say if a parent plays this episode to one of their children? Because they're like, wow, what Brady said was really powerful and impactful, and they're committed to having a better relationship with their parents. You've said it a few times on the episode today that we're best friends, and we really are. And I love and adore you more than anything. You, your sister, your mom, like you guys are my everything. And I think that every parent can have that quality relationship, even though we sometimes have these triggers, these emotions, these traumas. And I also believe that they are divinely curated so that each person can learn what they've meant to learn to overcome so they can turn around, teach it, and share it, which is how we started the episode. So as perfectly imperfect as every parent can be, they're going to do things wrong because it's divinely created so that their children can learn from that, so they can learn from their children, so that we can all heal, and it creates that generational healing. But now imagine there's a boy and a girl listening to this right now, and they're going through something. Maybe they're having those thoughts that you were having. What is your advice to them? What would you recommend that they do right now to make themselves feel better and to know that that should never be an option?
Well, if you don't have a family you can trust yet, if you don't have a family that you believe you can trust, there's an angel team around you that'll help you, but they will only help you if you ask. Something my mom told me was there are angels around you. There are your special angels around you. They will not help you until you ask because it is optional. They will not force help. But something that showed signs of that was like what I earlier said, accept help wasn't just from you or my parents. It was explaining that it didn't say it on the card, but it showed in my mind there are angels around us that are there and they will help you. They are like your best friends and you can connect with them, but they will not help you. They will not show you anything unless you ask for it. And I started asking, like I asked before we started the podcast, to help me overcome my fear of being something I'm not, being scared of being in front of this many people, even though I'm not, but it's gonna be. Just helping me overcome anything that's gonna stop me from doing this. Like at the beginning I was shaking a little bit, but this has just become something greater than I ever thought I would be doing. But just remember, there's angels around you, and the best thing you can do is connect and receive.
Well, I just want you to know that this has probably been my favorite conversation with you. And so I'm just going to make you sit down and do podcast episodes with me so that I can have an hour of your undivided attention so you can't run off and want to play with your friends. Brady, thank you so much for joining us. I had said in the beginning of the episode, when you started talking, there were two things that I wanted to say. One was that I was proud of you. And the second was that you had introduced the concept of us having angelic support around us. And I wanted that to be my closing question. And then without you even knowing that that's where I wanted to end today's episode, you so beautifully and intuitively, meaning you received information and you chose to communicate that you received the information to touch on in case somebody was going through something. And even if we feel like we're not worthy, we're not enough, or that we're alone, or that we're not loved, that we are so loved, and that we have these benevolent beings that surround us all the time. There are guardian angels, there are deceased loved ones. We have so much support around us. Just because we can't always see it, or we don't always have the physical evidence of it, doesn't mean that they're not present. And what Brady was saying is that they are actually not able to support you unless you ask them. God gave us free will, and part of that free will is to choose whether we do or whether we don't want to acknowledge them, whether we do or we don't want to receive the gifts of their support. When Brady walked into the room after he and I had spoken, Aniston was sitting on our bed, and she was pulling these intuitive cards with my daughter. And they were busy preparing for a women's retreat that's coming up at the end of the week. And every lady is going to get to pick a card. And so they were talking about it. Brady walked in and he said, "I would like to pick a card." And Aniston said, "Well, I'm going to shuffle them, and then you get to pick 2 cards." And then he had to run his hands over the whole deck of cards and then feel which one was intuitively right for him. No one in the room knew what he and I had discussed. No one knew what had happened except he and I. And the card that he pulled 100% spoke into how he has got support from a family member or a close friend, somebody near to him, and that his job is to trust in that level of support from his family or from his friends or from his environment, and that he's never alone. And then the second card layered on top of that everything that we're going through is always value and a lesson, and it's going to impact your relationships, your friendships, your family, everything. And it was just such a beautiful reminder. And it spoke into, again, the level of support that we have around us, that not only out of hundreds of cards did he pick the 2 cards that really spoke into the conversation that we had, because it also mentioned on the second card that he in that moment was going through emotions. Those emotions weren't his, but he was identifying with them, and that he alone could change his relationship with those thoughts or those feelings. And it's so powerful when we at any age realize that we have support from our father, from our mother, from our kids, from our friends, from our family, our business partners, etc., but that we also have this incredible angelic energy that is available to us, that we have the ever presence of the Creator, and that our lives are a co-creation, and that every single moment, every single experience is for us, divinely for us. And I do believe that it's so we can turn around, teach it, and share it. Brady, I'm so proud of you. 3rd time I'm saying it today, buddy. You are just an incredible human being. And I just hope to be even just a sliver of the man that you already are. I'm proud of how you're showing up. I would not have had the courage to do what you just did at 11 years old, let alone 22 years old, let alone 33 years old. And you just did it so beautifully. I just want to say from my heart to yours, baby, I love you. You are so perfect. And I say perfectly imperfect all the time, but I'm going to just say right now, you are so perfect. You are the perfect boy. You're growing into the perfect man. You are just an incredible human being, an example of what does it look like to just be kind and to be loving and to be compassionate. And I am so sorry if I've ever made you feel like you're not just the most incredible human being. And I'm so grateful and blessed to have you just the way you are. And even though I'm asking you to be on time, or to be a better leader on the football field, or to not get frustrated with your friends, that's never a reflection of how I feel about you. That in that moment, it's just me trying to, as a parent, put on the guardrails, the limitations, the restrictions, and the teachings of what society tells us that we should do as parents. And that I just think that you're an incredible human being just as you are. If I never taught you another thing for the rest of your life, you would be just fine, because you already are the amazing person that you came here to be. I love you, baby. To everybody that's listened to today's episode, this was a very raw and emotional episode for both Brady and I. My voice is still cracking as I say these words, because the emotion is just sitting right underneath the lid, so to speak. And I don't want you to just hear this episode today. I want you to action it. I want you to turn around and go to the people that are closest to you and ask them, what are they going through? How can you support them? How can you love them? And then ask them, how could you be better at loving them?
because the answers are going to change your life and it's going to change their lives. Thank you so much for joining us for the Empowered Life podcast. We love you, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.